relationship between landlords and tenants in recent years has been, well, tense, to say the least. Escalating rent costs and changing rules have prompted the adoption of an us versus them mentality. At least that's how it's been portrayed. How do we mend these relationships? How do we make sure this symbiotic relationship continues to flourish? Joining us now to discuss, thanks to our partners at Property Apprentice, is founder and CFO Debbie Roberts. Debbie, we were just saying during the break, actually, for 99% of people, there's a really good relationship between the tenant and a landlord.
Yeah, and it's just that, you know, like we were saying, it's only the horror stories that you hear about, because the good news stories never make it to media because they're boring. You know, it's like, who wants to hear about a tenant who's lived in a rental property and looked after it as if they've owned it for 15 years, paid the rent on time? No one's going to get excited over a story like that. But the majority of landlord-tenant relationships are great. And as you said, that symbiotic relationship rather than a parasitic one. I think, I've got my cheat sheet here with some stats. So, you know, we've got over a third of New Zealanders are tenants in this country, and 87% of them rent from private landlords or trusts. So, you know, that's private landlords or trusts are the major housing providers in this country. So I think if I can give a few tips to make sure that you can help that relationship from both sides, you know, because it is responsible for, it's the responsibility of both sides. So for landlords, and bear in mind, for the landlords out there, 78% of landlords in this country only own one rental property. So that's their retirement nest egg.
Yeah.
I think that's something that tenants need to remember as well. But I'll start with the landlords and then I'll talk about tenants, what they can do. So for landlords, just treat it like a business, you know, and treat your clients like treat your tenants like valued clients, you know, give them respect, give them a nice, warm, dry, clean house to live in, and give them their privacy to enjoy that home that they're living in. Charge fair market rent. Actually, if you're not charging fair market rent, the tenant can take you to tenancy tribunal and argue that, so you legally have to. Fix things as soon as possible. You know, don't let repairs and maintenance fall behind, because it'll protect your asset and it'll also help your tenant stay happy.
And that takes us to the tenant side of it too, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because if something goes wrong, you need to let the landlord know.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with things like leaks. You know, if there's a leak and you don't let your landlord know, first of all, they're not going to be able to fix it, but secondly, it makes things really difficult because insurance won't pay out for things like slow water damage, you know. So it is the tenant's responsibility to let the landlord know as soon as possible if something does need fixing. Helps provide the house for a start if the tenants pay rent on time and in full. You know, because like I said, most of the landlords in New Zealand are mum and dad investors, and it's like there's less than 2.4% of New Zealanders that own rental properties. So, you know, we need each other. Tenants need somewhere to live, and landlords need someone to help cover the cost of providing that home.
Yeah, absolutely. No, some good tips there for people who are renting or who are landlords themselves. Thank you, Debbie. Good to see you as always. That is Property Apprentice founder and CFO Debbie Roberts with us this morning. Thanks again to our partners at Property Apprentice.